Okay, our next speaker is Regis Kelly, who's the director of QB3. Reg.
Well, thanks to the organizers for inviting me here, and thanks to the audience. I mean, I'm the last official talk of the day, and you've been very patient, so thank you for staying with us. So, what I'm going to talk about today, and some of the problems we have. So I work for the University of California, right? We have 10 campuses in the University of California. The annual budget is about $22 billion per year. Of that, about $200 million or less is currently used on inter-campus collaborations, less than 1% of the budget, right? So that just gives you an idea of how much the University of California puts value on interactions between its campuses. Now, it's actually getting worse. The campuses are actually being pushed to decentralize. Many of the chancellors are trying to put even less money into the Office of the President to bring the money back to their own campuses. The reason for that is obvious, right? I mean, true happiness is giving away somebody else's money. And many of the chancellors, of course, want to be in the position of giving the money away themselves. That gives them the power that all chancellors want. I was a vice chancellor, I can say that. Let me then talk about QB3. QB3 is 3 campuses, as I said before: Santa Cruz, San Francisco, Berkeley. We were created in the year 2000 to do, way back then, convergence of the physical and biological sciences. But we're not made by the University of California. We were created by the state of California to be an engine of economic growth. That's an important, you've got to pay attention to who's paying the piper here, right? So what did we get? We won a competition. There were 4 winners in the state of California. For winning the competition, we got $100 million. That paid 1/3 of the amount of money to build these 3 new buildings in Santa Cruz, San Francisco, and Berkeley. Now, unfortunately, the year 2000 was the last year there was a lot of money in California. Immediately the next year, there was a crash, right? So then what happened with the operating funds? So when the operating funds for the QB3 dropped to being something like $500,000 per year. Now, I've been working on it for now 9 years, and I've brought it up to $5 million a year. However, of that $5 million that we get per year, $4 million gets taken by the chancellors right away. So I get 20% of the money I bring in, which I think illustrates the first principle I wanted to make, that when you're trying to talk about institutional arrangements, there is a basic conflict between those people who want to organize the institution and bring together cross-collaboratively and those members who are in the institution's the separate domains. There's a complete competition for funding from development, from philanthropy, from industry, and from government. So that's a real problem. You just have to deal with it. Now, so what I want to do then, how did we, within our $1 million a year, how could we try and achieve convergence? Well, the key thing is, remember, we're to try and bring together the physical and the biological sciences. Now, guiding principle number 2, find where the funds make a difference, right? So let me just say, we're getting in, when you're thinking of the impact of any funding come in, it's more or less linearly proportional to a fraction, right? The ratio of the amount of money you get coming in to the amount of money you had before. So research and education money coming into QB3 through the standard routes here, was about $150 million a year. I'm getting $1 million a year. You can't move the direction of the battleship on less than 1%, right? So what you have to do, if you've got a little bit of funds in an expensive organization, is think, where can you put the money where there isn't much money at the present moment? Well, it'll be no surprise to this audience what that is. That is to try and get faculty out of their silos and collaborating with each other, right? We had no institution anywhere in QB3 which was dedicated to getting faculty to work together to form teams to address issues. So assembling teams. So we did it, first of all, this was the first one we did, and this was done many years ago by the administration of QB3 at Berkeley, to put together a team to address the wicked problem of biofuels. Biofuels is a huge problem, how you put chemical engineers together with biologists, plant biologists, agronomics, economics, politicians. Universities should be great at addressing those wicked problems, but it required someone to put them together. I was not involved in that. It was done by the Berkeley administration, but it gave rise to a $500 million arrangement with British Petroleum, with BP, sorry. Systems pharmacology. Can you actually get people, we all know what's wrong, that pharmacology is basically an empirical field. We all know we're supposed to be bringing systems biology into pharmacy so that we can have a rational basis for polypharmacy. That's something we need to do. That's a grand challenge, and we're trying to bring people here to do it. One of the great things I did is those of you who know UC Santa Cruz know that it's really good at bioinformatics. David Hausler, who put together the Human Genome Browser and now the Cancer Browser, really, really good. But he was only working on animal evolution, so we connected him to the cancer researchers at UCSF, Laura Esselman and other people, and now we have the Cancer Genomics Hub at UC Santa Cruz, right? So now 80% of David Hausler's grants are coming from cancer. Several years ago, we've had 0 from the National Cancer Institute. So bringing people together can add value. The thing I really want to talk about is what I would be working on today if I was not here in Washington, and that's a group I'm trying to put together on rejuvenation therapies. Right now, so all of us know, we know why we want to have rejuvenation therapies, right? 95% of the diseases in America are age-related. That means 95% of the cost of disease in America is age-related. If, without changing the lifespan, we could delay by 5 years the onset of aging, the economic impact on this country, never mind the quality of life impact, would be enormous. So if you want to have a big challenge, rejuvenation therapies is one that seems an exciting one. So I put together a team here in the last 6 months to put this together, and it goes all the way from people doing systems biology to people doing post-operative cognitive disorder. The thing that got this going, however, mostly with the two people up there, one at Berkeley, one in San Francisco, Saul Vieda and Avino Conboy, who independently are working on heterochronic parabiosis. For those of you who are physicists and don't know these things, heterochronic parabiosis is when you join the blood vessels of an old and a young mouse together, and what happens? You find that the old mouse gets its brain, heart, liver, muscle, all get rejuvenated. So there's something in blood that's rejuvenating tissues, right? So it's not that impossible to be thinking of rejuvenation therapies. It's just the first people to do it are going to be quite popular. It gets old. Don't try and do that with a friend or a child. So we put together, we've had several workshops in our team now, and this is just an example of the sort of way we're thinking about it. We think of aging as being something you're primed in some way to become aged by, for example, a chromatin expression modification, proteostasis, tissue remodeling problem. When you're primed, there's a trigger event that makes that happen, and that's to allow for the stochastic process. Aging is a stochastic process, so you can see very clearly from C. elegans data that the priming event can be modulated by things like diet, obesity, exercise, genetics, hypothalamic activity, even reproductive senescence in some organisms. So there's some insults that trigger it, and then there's a whole process of aging itself. So we've been able to put this together, and we actually now have on our list, we have actually 7 what we think really good candidates for rejuvenation therapy, 3 long shots, and 1 really good platform for getting any rejuvenation therapy we come up with into humans within 5 years. That's our plan. I've not put up I had the original candidates up here, but then I realized this was going to be sent out all over the country, and I didn't know if I was ready for that. So I took out the targets. So I'll tell anybody later who wants to hear. But anyway, we're now having a symposium October 16th of the QB3 on staying younger longer, where we're not only discussing the science, we're also trying to discuss the ethical and social issues involved. Now, so principle 2, in order to make this work, you need a faculty member who's willing primarily to devote themselves to crossing across silos. I have closed down my own lab. Myself and my team work full-time at trying to connect the 220 labs together within QB3. We could do with more people to do that, right? It's a full-time task to do this. It's not a trivial task. You can't do it part-time. Okay, now one thing that came out of this is partnership with the private sector. We want to do public good. You can't do it without interacting with the private sector. You can do it with existing companies or new companies. And a part of QB3, what you call the QB3 Innovation Lab, tries to reach out to the private sector, connecting not just scientists within QB3, but to the outside community. Now, principle 1, it was really nice. So Pfizer came, we have our second $10 million agreement with Pfizer that also led to a second $65 million one not run by QB3. The key thing here was that since my team and myself actually know what's going on in in 3 campuses of the University of California more than anybody else, any dean, no dean or chairman knows as much as we do, we are therefore a nice, attractive conduit from a company into the university because we know more than anybody else what's going on. That's been one of the major things we now are attracting company interest. The thing we're most excited about is starting new companies, because universities should be really good at doing disruptive research in new companies. So what we do mainly, though, is focus not on the faculty. We sort of think the faculty life is a little bit too easy, actually. You want to start a company, you've got to work 24/7, you've got to live on peanut butter sandwiches. That's not what faculty will do, right? So, but students, graduate students and postdocs, we've trained them to do that, right? So they're the ideal people to start companies. But they don't have knowledge, they don't have money. How do we do the knowledge thing? We run up a startup in a box service, but we don't teach a class. We actually teach, every person comes in individually, gets a service on how to work, how to incorporate your company, how to deal with lawyers, how to set up a bank account. It's a service, right? So in the last 2 years, we've had 140 companies incorporated from our students, and of those, 35 are currently functional. So we dealt with the lack of knowledge part. The second part, how can you reduce the money? How can you keep it low? Well, what we try to do is say, well, we're going to rent you out a small piece of space that you can possibly manage, 150, 200 square feet of space. We'll charge you normal rent, we're required per square foot, but we'll allow you to be in a very small space. So that's worked amazingly. We currently have on our incubator network 62 companies. We've graduated 25. We've created over 300 jobs. Last year alone, we brought in $150 million from small business grants, angel and venture investments. Remember, all on an investment of $1 million. That's a pretty good ROI. Right? So we're still getting about 80 inquiries for space, and we're attracting national, international principals. So what is the principle here? We think one of the things, actually, universities having a university-associated incubator is a real laboratory for supporting convergence, right? Especially for driving user-driven innovation. We are also trying to make this as cheaply as possible. Very proud of this. We've just signed an 18-year lease on this ugly old warehouse 2 blocks away from our new campus. We've done TI improvements on it, and it's all done on the lean startup model to allow people to move into really good labs at the cheapest possible price. We have been able to do tenant improvements on this old warehouse at 1/10 the cost of what it takes UCSF to remodel its labs, right? That's music to the ears of a Scotsman. Fine? Yeah, come see it. No, yeah, so one last thing I want to say is this, actually what has happened, and we didn't think this up, but this relates to what Dr. Murray said this morning. It's not the ecosystem has evolved in this way. So we started off with this tiny little space, 2,500 square feet of space, which was going to be our startup incubator. In a very short time, that's grown up to being 62 countries, 40,000 square feet of space. Quite unexpectedly, that's actually helped us to attract the big companies. And to be honest, the big companies are more interested in our incubators tenants than they are the faculty and our scientists, because these people have already matched their creativity to a product, right? So they're more valuable. But then that, of course, led the venture capital community to come in. We then are able now, because we have 300 people, to get all sorts of services for our incubator tenants, which we couldn't have got if it was only 2 or 3. Government likes us because we've taken this whole ugly railroad yard south of San Francisco and are converting it into something that's valuable. And we're even getting international interest. The Prime Minister of Malaysia, Najib, is coming next Monday to visit us. So let me just end by saying that what we've inadvertently, we didn't intend to do this. We've created an ecosystem where, as Dr. Murray said, we have these stakeholders all interacting around the business of making startup companies, and helps to, we think, help nucleate convergence. Now, the last thing I want to say at this meeting, this great meeting, is that I've had to learn to adjust to the whole idea of transdisciplinarity. This is a new one for me. So I've realized I have to learn to transcend, transform, and most particularly transgress. I am looking forward to changing my life as a result of this meeting. Thank you very much.